The John LeBanc Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised. Greetings, Earthlings, and alert the media. The bank is on the microphone. Another jam-packed hour of sonic vibrations are coming your way. And they are so loaded this hour. This 60 minutes is packed and squished and filled to the gill. In the second segment, and probably transferring into the third segment, we've got our monthly installment of Rock and Roll Unraveled with author and rock and roll historian Derek Shelmerdine. Later in the show, we're going to be talking about, did Trump have a good week or a bad week with the whole Obamacare fiasco of the repeal and replace that the Republicans in the Senate can't do anything about, can't get it done. We're going to be talking about Trump's firing frenzy. Is he finally cleaning house? Well, we're going to get to that. But before we get to all that good stuff, we have the big news, the stuff that is leading the way, and that's the fact that the United States Air Force has unleashed a few supersonic bombers in North Korea during a nuke drill, as it is claimed the president is poised to launch a military strike against the rogue state. And for most people, we've been eagerly, or I shouldn't even say eagerly, we've been fixated on the fact that North Korea, ever since Donald Trump has been elected, has been spotlighted, has been highlighted. And apparently 2 nuclear-capable B-1 bombers were escorted by South Korean fighters over the peninsula. Apparently Donald Trump, according to sources, Trump is trying to get rid of these leaks and everything, but according to sources, Donald Trump is to order a military strike against North Korea within a year. Senior military sources, don't you like this? This is mainstream media hitting us up with more sources leaking this information out. These sources in Washington have reportedly claimed Pentagon officials have laid out plans to obliterate a nuclear weapons facility operating deep within the mountain range inside North Korea. The news comes hours, ladies and gentlemen, after the United States flew 2 supersonic bombers over the Korean Peninsula in a show of strength, in a show of force to the North Koreans. And you think that's going to intimidate King Ding Dong, Mr. President? Now, these B-1 bombers, as I said earlier, they were escorted by South Korean fighters as they performed a low pass over an airbase near the South Korean capital of Seoul before returning to Andersen Air Force Base in Guam. The U.S. Air Force said the mission was a response to the consecutive ICBM tests by Kim Ding Dong this month. Analysis says flight data from the second test conducted Friday night shows that the border part of the mainland of America, including Los Angeles and Chicago, are now in range of Pyongyang's weapons. So, all of a sudden, Pyongyang, Kim Ding Dong out there, is showing off all this new military gadgets since Donald Trump has gotten into office. Now, they didn't just build these things. They didn't just, in the last 7 months, come up with this new fangled weaponry to threaten the United States. In fact, this has probably been developing for many, many years, at least the past 8, if not beyond that. And you got to look back on the Obama administration and go, how did you guys let this sort of thing happen? But to go beyond that, North Korea remains the most urgent threat, according to General Terrence J. O'Shaughnessy, Pacific Air Force Commander. What kind of name is that? I mean, I don't want to pick on the general. He's a general. But, wow, what a name. Now, they're saying that the diplomatic relations is the lead. They want to find a way to fix this problem with North Korea, democratically, through diplomacy. However, I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think the U.S. military or President Trump thinks this is going to happen. And it's according to, it's our responsibility, because we have treaties with these other countries, that our nation showcase an overwhelming commitment. And that's what this general is saying. Now, a top military expert has revealed exactly how the U.S. military will take out North Korea's nukes if Donald Trump gives the green light for deadly strikes. Really. Mr. President, I'm sending you a message right now. You're trying to stop these leaks. You're trying to stop this information from getting out. Yet you have a top military expert, unnamed of course, but a top military expert, getting ready to tell the world, because I'm going to read into this, getting ready to tell the world what you're going to do to take out North Korea's threat. And I remember during the election, you were very crucial about how President Obama handled military interventions and actions. And you were critical by saying, well, we tell the enemy what we're going to do before we're going to do it. And here you have a senior military official preparing to tell the world exactly what we're going to do. Now, if you're in the mood for firing people, which I'm not opposed of, Mr. President, I don't have a problem with you cleaning house in Washington. This military advisor who's getting ready to tell your plan, which you were against telling the enemy, at least in the election, Mr. President. I know some of your campaign promises, some of your campaign slogans aren't exactly transpiring the way you promised them. And maybe that's why you're firing a bunch of people, because obviously you have some sort of opposition within your own ranks and in the deeper state. Now, we know that Donald Trump considers Kim Ding Dong the primary threat. Him and ISIS, right? They're the two most pressing issues. But the senior analyst from Stratfor, that would be part of the military-industrial complex, Stratfor, which provides strategic analysis to the U.S. government, has told Business Insider exactly how the military could potentially carry out crippling strike against North Korea and King Ding Dong. The U.S., according to this guy, and since it's out on the web already, he's already explained to the world what we are going to do if we want to take out Kim Ding Dong. And we know that the president wants to take care of Kim Ding Dong. Now, the U.S., according to this guy, would choose between a full-scale destruction of North Korea's facilities and ground forces, or a quicker attack on only the most important nuclear facilities. Now, the full-scale attack, according to this guy, which his name is Tack. He's being tacky by letting this information out. But according to Tack, the U.S. would have to choose between a full-scale destruction of their nuclear facility that could lead to a mission creeping that would pull the U.S. into a long-term conflict in East Asia. So we're talking ground forces, invasion. Now, it would focus on a surgical strike that would wipe out a bulk of North Korea's nuclear forces. Now, if North Korea sees you coming, they're going to let them go, aren't they? If they see them coming. Because if you're going to wipe out their nuclear forces, those forces are probably highly protected as far as they've got the best radar possible. Maybe our stealth bombers can get through that, maybe they can't. The U.S. is likely to use stealth aircraft, as they're talking about, either F-22s or the B-2 bomber for a pinpoint attack. In the run-up to any attack, the U.S. would position nuclear submarines, Navy ships, and stealth aircrafts at bases near North Korea. Well, don't we have 3 aircraft carrier groups out there already? This guy's talking within a year, and we already have our forces positioned. You don't think that's giving North Korea the incentive to launch a few ICBMs to try to scare you off? You see, this whole thing continues to escalate, and it doesn't go away. And when you look back at the overall agenda that has been slowly placed and moved and added, the agenda, that's the New World Order agenda. And you need to get North Korea if you want the New World Order to succeed. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that it was Obama who is attempting to make a military shift geologically, geopolitically, and they were trying to shift a majority of our forces from the European side to the Asian side. This was already in play. They've already been planning to move more forces into the Asian region, into the theater. Now, if it's not part of the agenda, but it sure looks like it, Mr. Trump, it sure looks like it's following along, the same path Barack Hussein Obama placed before us. This shift into this Asian theater. And who would be the first target in the Asian theater? That would be North Korea, no matter if it was Obama, Trump, Bush, Clinton, whoever it was. That's the first and most likely target. So either the New World Order is marching right along, and this is exactly the plan that they want to happen, or Donald Trump is falling into this. Now, how do you, I'm not a fan of North Korea. I can't stand them. But why can't we build, as I've said many times before, why can't we build an impenetrable defense system so that we don't have to keep blowing up things into other countries? We don't have to keep launching offensive attacks into sovereign nations. Why can't we have an impenetrable defense system that can knock down any ICBM, any fighter, any aircraft from any other country on the planet? We're supposed to be the most technologically advanced military on the face of the planet. Then why can't we have defense systems? I mean, that's what is called for. We're supposed to have defensive weapons to protect us against the enemy. Not use an offense as a defensive means. Because we're supposed to allow other countries, whether we like them or not, their own sovereignty. But when you're talking the New World Order and the one world government that is wanted for the New World Order, you have to take out rogue states that you don't agree with, that you don't get along with. You have to do it offensively because you have to eliminate them, not just protect yourself from them. And that's what our defense, isn't that, we have the Secretary of Defense, right? It's not the Secretary of Offense. It's the Defense Department, not the Offense Department. See, the name is right. We need defensive capabilities to protect us from the enemies, foreign and domestic. We don't need the offensive capabilities that take us from a righteous nation to just another imperialistic, conquering world body, no different than any other conquering world bodies that have ever existed. We're long, folks. We're going to take a quick break here. On the other side of this, Derek Shelmerdine and Rock and Roll Unraveled. Stay tuned. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Listening there. Don't go anywhere. The John LeBang Show is going to be right back. Just ask the hillbilly.
That's right. Right after this.
What about me? Maybe next time. If you are elderly, disabled, receiving SSI or Medicaid, and you have a medical need or require assistance with daily housework, shopping, grooming, medication, you may qualify for housekeeping at no cost. Call now. VIP Home Healthcare, 248-579-3805. VIP Home Healthcare, there when you need them. That's 248-579-3805. Check out the new book from Derek Shelmerdine,
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It tells the story of rock and roll from its roots right up until the mid-70s punk.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Not just the music, but also the events that shaped the music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It includes the backgrounds to recording sessions, singles, album releases, births, and deaths, epic concerts and festivals.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Shelmerdine has made a painstaking effort to document pretty much every event that would prove significant in shaping popular music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Purchase the book at www.rockandrollunraveled.com. Follow him at Twitter at R&R Unraveled, and look him up on Facebook at Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
By author Derek Shelmerdine.
Available now. You're listening to the John LeBanc Show.
It's hydroponic radio for your brain, man.
Feel smarter yet? All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And now, as you all look forward to each and every month, we bring back our good friend, Mr. Derek Shelmerdine, for our special little segment called Rock and Roll Unraveled. Derek, how are you this fine day?
It's actually raining a little here, but apart from that, it's a very, very beautiful day. And it's great to be back with you, John. Okay, well, start with one of the biggest rock and roll bands in the history of the world, the Rolling Stones. A couple of birthdays. On the 18th of July 1938, Ian Stewart was born. Now, if people haven't heard of Ian Stewart, he was actually the first person to join Brian Jones's band that eventually became the Rolling Stones. And he was there before Happy Birthday Mick Jagger. He was born on the 26th of July 1943. And the Stones, under that name, played their first ever gig on the 12th of July 1962. What happened is they were substituting for Alexis Korner. Mick Jagger was his lead vocalist at the time. He was also in the Brian Jones Rolling Stones band. And Korner had a gig elsewhere. But there was Brian Jones, Mick Jagger, and Keith Richards there. Dick Taylor, the bass player, went on to form Pretty Things. But the jury's out on who the drummer was that day. If you go to the Rolling Stones website, they say that it was Mick Avery, the Kinks drummer. But if you go to Cast Off Kinks, which is actually a website associated with people who used to be in the Kinks, there's an interesting interview with Mick Avery, and he says he never actually played at that gig. He rehearsed with them, but never actually played that gig.
And it was the guy Tony Chapman that he was talking about?
Right, well, the other guy that was most likely to have been the drummer was Tony Chapman. He was in a group called the Cliftons, and that was the group that bass player came from. The Rolling Stones were just sort of started out, and the Stones had a lot of different people through the bass and through the drums at the time.
Good piece of history.
Absolutely. And going on to the 28th of July, 66, that was the last time American fans saw Brian Jones. He played his last ever gig in Honolulu. And interestingly enough, on the 5th of July, 69, the Stones played their first gig with Mick Taylor, because Brian Jones had been sacked from the Stones 2 or 3 weeks earlier. But a couple of days before the gig at Hyde Park, Brian Jones had died on the 3rd of July 1969. He was just 27 years old. He died in mysterious circumstances in his swimming pool of his house. And on the same day, 2 weeks later, 3rd of July 1971, Jim Morrison, Lizard King, and Doors frontman, he died at the age of 27. And that's where the whole sort of 27 Club comes about. Lots of people, Janis Joplin, legends, died on the 27th. And in 1938, Robert Johnson, the famous blues guy, died on the 16th of August. And it's generally felt that he'd sold his soul to the devil, the Crossroads, for fame and fortune.
Yeah, that's been the myth behind that 27-year-old death concept, right?
I've seen some people suggest that famous jazz musicians had died at the age of 27 before that. But I think they're fitting that into the legend, as it were. And I think Robert Johnson's a good place to start that particular conversation.
Well, you and I made it past 27, so we're good.
Exactly. Yes. It's always good to move on. We all think we're going to die before we're 40. Never. Well, sometimes happens. Doesn't always. Singles. Good day for some singles for the Stones. 1st of August, 64. They had their first US hit with Tell Me, entered the Billboard chart on that day, 1st of August. And on the 18th of August, 67, in the UK, they released We Love You, coupled with Dandelion. Now, Dandelion was the hit in America, but We Love You was the A-side in the UK, and John Lennon and Paul McCartney sang backing vocals on that particular song. A little bit of trivia. And Mick Jagger's first movie performance was released on the 3rd of August, 1970. Described in the posters as madness, sanity, fantasy, reality, sensuality, death, life, vice versa.
That's a little bit of a title there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, the time of the film itself, I didn't say that, did I? The time of the film itself was performance. And it was just, that was the way the posters described the film. But you're right, I mean, that would have made one heck of a title. Stones are on tour at the moment. They're doing a European tour called the No Filler Tour. And that goes across Europe, basically, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, and a bunch of other places. And if you're in Europe from the 9th of September to the 5th of October, you can catch them. And I dare say they'll be playing a lot of stuff from their new album, Blue and Lonesome, which is the Stones going back to their roots. And it's a great album. Just
to touch on the Paul McCartney and John Lennon singing backups, I remember as when I was a youth, there was always a separation in fans. It was either the Beatles were great or the Rolling Stones were great, and who would have thought that they actually collaborated on something?
Brian Jones actually plays sax as well on, I think it's the B-side of, I think it's the track called You Know My Name, Call the Number, or something like that. But the reason they played it was that the Stones had just been done for a drugs bust in the UK, and the Beatles, or John and Paul, were showing solidarity, because the Who actually released a single as well of a couple of Jagger Richard compositions, Under My Thumb, and another one I can't quite remember the name of offhand. So they were all showing solidarity to the Stones. But you're right, I mean, it was all very much, are you a Beatles man or are you a Stones man at the time?
That's cool stuff. Now we got Cream to talk about as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. One of my all-time favourite bands. I mean, they made their official debut gig on the 31st of July 1966 at the 6th National Jazz and Blues Festival in Windsor, just outside London. Yeah, what happened? Eric Clapton left John Mayall. They just released Blues Breakers with Eric Clapton. Ginger Baker had recently left Graham Bond organisation, and Jack Bruce had been with Manfred Mann, surprisingly enough. He was only with them a short time, but they released Pretty Flamingo while he was there. And they were together Cream was together for just over a couple of years, and then they all party companied at the end of 1968, and at the beginning of 1969, Blind Faith was pulled together by Eric Clapton. They actually, strange band. I mean, they played their final gig at the in Hawaii on the 24th of August 1969. They'd only been together for a few months. I mean, they actually played the first gig and only gig in the UK back in early June. What happened was Clapton went on then to play with Delaney and Bonnie, who'd supported the Blind Faith American tour. And it was basically a bunch of Delaney and Bonnie friends, as they call themselves, who made up the band for Derek and the Dominoes. August 1969, on the 29th, Jack Bruce released his first album, solo album, after splitting from Cream, called Songs for It. Now, the tailor in the title is a lady called Jeannie Franklin, also known as Jeannie the Tailor, and she was a designer and used to make clothes for lots of bands, including the Cream, and she died when the tour bus that Fairport Convention were in back in a few months earlier in May, that crashed on the way back from a gig, and she died in that. She was in the band. She was the guitarist Richard Thompson's girlfriend, but sadly Martin Lamble, the drummer, actually also died in that particular crash. And the last thing really on sort of history side for Cream was that on the 19th of August 1939, Ginger Baker was born. So happy birthday, Ginger Baker. He was in Cream and Blind Faith. Went on to form his own band, Ginger Baker's Air Force. Brilliant band. And Eric Clapton's on tour at the moment. You can catch him at Madison Square Garden in New York on September the 7th and 8th, and the Forum, Inglewood, California, on September the 15th and 16th.
So it's just a 4-show tour?
Yeah, I think he's sort of dipping in and out of these things. He's on the road sporadically, as it were. There might well still be opportunity to get tickets for those gigs in September, and he would be a great guy to catch in concert. Sadly, we won't see Jack Bruce in concert anymore, and Ginger Baker's not a well man now. I did come across a tour. It's not actually going on at the moment, but recently finished, with Ginger Baker's son, Jack Bruce's son, and I think it was Clapton's cousin, and doing a Cream tribute tour.
You brought up Eric Clapton had a final show in Hawaii, and then the Stones also had, what was it, Brian Jones, right? Had his final show in Honolulu, Hawaii. Is that like a resting place for people?
Yeah, it does seem like the kiss of death to play Hawaii. Lovely place it is. Maybe more for surfers and rock and roll bands. But yeah, it's an interesting coincidence there.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick time out. More with Derek Shelmerdine and Rock and Roll Unraveled when we return.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Listening there. Don't go anywhere. The John LeBanc Show's going to be right back. Just ask the hillbilly.
That's right. Right after this.
What about me?
Maybe next time.
Fans, do you need a video for your brand new song but don't have a lot of money? Then contact John LeBanc. His reasonable rates, professional look, and fast turnarounds will help get that song off the ground. Contact him at jlebanc.com.
CRRM, CarePoint Billing Services. Their billers and managers are all dedicated to working for you to increase your profits. For more information, call CRRM at 248-579-3805. CRRM, CarePoint Billing Services.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
So we got Frank Zappa and some news on him, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's got some interesting links to the Animals, Led Zeppelin, and Grand Funk Railroad, to mention just a few. Now, the Animals, on the 4th of July 1966, the Animals were recording their Animalism session with Frank Zappa. He arranged a couple of songs on it. One of his own songs, All Night Long, and the Fred Neil classic, The Other Side of This Life. Zappa's reputed to have played guitar on All Night Long and probably bass on The Other Side of This Life. But that was, I mean, where are we now? 1966, July 4. This is the very end of the Animals era. They split up shortly after. And of course, Chas Chandler saw Jimi Hendrix at the Cafe Wha in New York, and he became Jimi Hendrix's manager. Took him to the UK, and well, Jimi Hendrix was born, basically. Jimi Hendrix Experience. I mean, they split up at the Electric Ladyland Day Party Company.
And that was a good album, too.
Oh, that was a great album. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, those first three albums, well, all his albums are pretty awesome, but those first three were unbelievable. And you've got to remember at the time, you know, the 1966, 67, 68, there was nothing like it before, so it was all real groundbreaking stuff. But I think one of the real fun Frank Zappa associations is with Led Zeppelin. 28th of July 1969, the notorious Edgewater Inn Mudshark incident. I mean, that was an interesting one. Led Zeppelin were playing at the Seattle Pop Festival, and they were staying in a hotel called the Edgware Inn. It's actually built on a pier, and you're encouraged to fish out of the windows. They've actually got a fishing tackle shop in the hotel. And the roadies were there in the afternoon. They caught a few mud sharks. Now, as one does, the evening was a mixture of groupies and mud sharks as makeshift sex toys.
No way. No way. Sex? They were using mud sharks as sex toys?
Yeah, apparently that's the way the myth goes. And if you listen to the Zappa connection, is on his album Fillmore East, June of 1971, he's got a track called The Mud Shark, and he talks about this, and he says that it was filmed by Vanilla Fudge, who were also at the Seattle Pop Festival. So it must be true. I've never actually seen anybody who's actually seen the film Wow, that's got to be one of rock and roll's après rock and roll favorites.
Oh, that's great. That's just an awesome story. One of the best you brought to the show.
I do love that particular one. Frank Zappa himself, on the 1st of August 1964, he opened his first studio in Cucamonga, and that's when he started working with people like Captain Beefheart, and he did a lot of doo-wop there, a lot of which sort of turned up on his later albums. And 1969, 20th of August, he disbanded the original Mothers of Invention. Now, they'd sort of got together back in mid-65 when they renamed from the Soul Giants. And they had 5 raw classic albums: Freak Out, Absolutely Free, We're Only In It For The Money, Lumpy Gravy, and Cruising with Ruben and the Jets, which is Zappa's tribute to doo-wop. I mean, fabulous albums. And a great time, that, right across the 60s.
Yeah, Frank Zappa had probably the most original ideas when it came to songs outside of maybe Pink Floyd.
Absolutely. I think he's one of my personal favorites, Frank Zappa. And his albums are all just so different. And what he decided that he didn't want the expense of keeping a band full-time on the payroll, because they were starting to tour a bit less. And they split up shortly after a short tour of Canada, I seem to remember.
Well, at least it wasn't in Hawaii.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll have to look out for more bands who terminate their careers in Hawaii. There must be a bunch of them out there. But I mean, one of the bands to come from Michigan, Flint, was Grand Funk Railroad. And on the 9th of August 1976, they released an album called Good Singing, Good Playing, and that was produced by Frank Zappa. What happened is they disbanded shortly before, got together to work with Zappa, and they disbanded again shortly after. Because, I mean, Grand Funk Railroad was sort of coming together, and after that as well, throughout the sort of 80s and 90s, they were sort of coming back together. They were driven really by Mark Farner was on the driving forces, came from Terry Knight and the Pack, and he put the band together originally with a guy called Don Brewer on drums and Mel Shaker on bass. And the tour now, what happened was they eventually split up with Farner. He eventually went his own way, but they got together with Max Carl on vocals, Bruce Kulnick on guitar, and Tom Cashin on keyboards. And they've been touring since around 2000, and they're on the road right now, and you can catch them right up now till the 16th of March 2018, right across America.
We don't have many homeboys from Michigan anymore, and Kid Rock's going to run for a political seat now, so we won't even have him.
So I mean, when you think of Sonny Bono, I mean, he did quite well out of politics as well. Some of the most unlikely people sometimes.
Yeah, he had the smile for it.
Absolutely. I liked his singles. I was one of the people who really enjoyed this couple of solo singles in the mid-60s. But Eric Burdon, talking of, as we were earlier, the Animals, parting company in mid-66. I mean, Eric Burdon has carried on since. He worked with War for a while, and he's on tour right now in Switzerland and the USA from the 3rd of September through the 24th of November. It's a lot of the gigs are being billed as Eric Burdon and the Animals, because when the Animals did split up in '66, he formed the New Animals and kept the name alive for a while before he got together with War.
So we got Queen next. Is that true? Queen,
absolutely. Queen is still going strong. Well, sort of going strong. They're not all there, of course. But I mean, Freddie Mercury, before Cream was formed, he played his first gig with one of his earlier bands called Ibex. That was on the 23rd of August 1969. A couple of weeks later, he played with Brian May and Roger Taylor for the first time. He was playing at with his band Ibex at a gig at the Sink Club, famous club in Liverpool. And he knew Brian May and Roger Taylor, and for the encore, they got up on stage and played with him, sort of jammed along. So that was the first time that those three guys got together. And in fact, on the 2nd of July 1971, it was when the classic lineup finally came together at Surrey College and John Deacon replaced the original bass player Mike Gross. So it was a good time, really. I mean, the first gig had been back in June 1970s. So Queen had quite a long gestation before they actually released their first album. I mean, they didn't release their first album called Queen until the 13th of August 1973. So essentially 3 years after the first gig. So no overnight sensation.
Yeah, but that first album was so good. They probably, especially knowing Freddie Mercury, they probably spent a lot of time writing those songs because, I mean, you could tell he, especially with his harmonies and stuff like that, he really thought out the song process.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's good, really, I think, when bands do take a while and pull it together. I mean, the Record Collector magazine in the UK, it's the Under Goldmine in the States. For years, I mean, almost every year, I think since it started, the Beatles have been voted the most collectible band. But an awful lot of the time, Queen were voted as the second most collectible band in the UK in that particular magazine. I mean, they're very, very highly rated band. I mean, just before I move on to the tour, happy birthday, Brian May. Born on the 19th of July, 1947. And you can actually catch Queen on tour now, shortly, with vocalist Adam Lambert. And they're on tour from the 31st of July to the 16th of December across USA, Europe, and the UK. So plenty of chance to catch them.
Yeah, that's fairly extensive, actually. For half a year, you're basically touring and you're getting a chance to see Queen. That's pretty good.
Absolutely. I mean, they got together with vocalist Adam Lambert in 2014, and they're on tour with him again now.
Now, did they put out an album with him?
I'm not sure. I'm not aware of one, but they might have done. I need to check that.
No worries. I always throw something weird at you.
But I mean, if the first guy that's not really replaced Freddie Mercury, but went on the road with Queen as the lead singer, of course, was Paul Rodgers from Free and Bad Company.
One of the best vocalists ever.
Absolutely.
He's one of those steady vocalists. You knew his voice right from the beginning. It didn't matter what group you heard him in, if he was solo, if he was with Bad Company. It didn't matter. You knew Paul Rodgers' voice, and it was steady throughout the years. It really, you could just tell who it was.
No, absolutely. I mean, they're two of my favorite bands. I mean, Free in the 60s and Bad Company in the 70s. Fantastic. Really powerful stuff.
So, Derek, why don't you give everybody some information about you, where they can contact you, where they can check out your stuff?
Great, yeah. Well, I wrote a book called Rock and Roll Unraveled, and all of the information virtually that we talked about for the last few minutes comes from that particular book, and that's available on Amazon. But a good place to find lots of information is on my website, www.rockandrollunravel.com, and I'm very active on Facebook and Twitter. You can catch that from the website. So if you're interested in rock and roll, the book tells a story of rock and roll from its roots back in the Robert Johnson days through to punk in the mid-70s. It's absolutely jam-packed full of information, the kind of things we've been chatting about today.
Well, Derek, I want to thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it. I look forward to our next installment, which will be right at the end of next month, beginning of September.
Great to talk to you again. I really enjoy these chats.
Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you next month.
My pleasure. Cheers, John.
And that was our good friend and author and rock and roll historian, Derek Shelmerdine, with our monthly segment, Rock and Roll Unraveled. Feel free to look him up on the web at www.rockandrollunraveled.com. We've got to take a quick break, folks, as we are running up the clock. One more segment heading your way right after this.
Where do you think you're going?
The John LeBang Show will be right back.
So grab a beer and a smoke and sit your butt back down.
Stay right here.
Powerful, epic music by Two Bucks Roll. Life-changing lyrics come in every style. The empowering humanity to finally unlock the chains of bondage. Experience the edgy side of positive music and rock your world today. From Primal to Divine, available now at sassyalternativemusic.com.
And I'd like to welcome our new sponsor, Pane in the Glass, commercial and residential window cleaning. For a beautiful, sparkling shine that's crystal clear, call Pane in the Glass Window Cleaning. You can find them on Facebook at Pane in the Glass.
If you want to contact the John LeBang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John LeBang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John LeBang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back as we're winding down the show here in the last final segment before the big summer vacation for the Banger. And that's good for you because you're going to be hearing so many cool specials coming up over the next few weeks. We're loaded with specials because August is our summer special month here on the John LeBang Show. So that's exciting. But you don't want to know the schedule. You want to hear what's going on right now. And we had a lot going on with the Republicans and the Obamacare and even Donald Trump. I mean, he's firing people left and right. He's cleaning house. At least we hope he's cleaning house. And maybe he's finally getting around to that. You know, I've had a little theory that maybe he wanted to get his feet wet for a while, have some basic establishment types in there until he gets his mojo rolling as president. Because he was coming in kind of like cold turkey, unlike other people who were groomed for many, many years to become president. Donald Trump, at least if you're taking him at face value, came in with not much training as far as being the president, the executive of a country. Sure, he was executive of his big business. Sure, he was fairly successful, you would think, making millions and millions and millions of dollars, owning all those hotels. I mean, he's a real estate guy. If there's anybody better suited to at least help the real estate, I'd like to know. But beyond that, we don't even want to talk about that. Because I think he's been sitting back trying to figure out how this president thing works from the inside and what's going on, and maybe even getting details on things that he wasn't sure about. So maybe all these months he's just been biding his time, and now he's had enough. All these leaks, he's like, I've had enough. We're going to fire everybody. The Republicans, on the other hand, can't get a damn thing done when it comes to Obamacare or taxes or anything important. And I know that it takes time to get things done, and it's supposed to take time to get things done in Congress. But they've had 7 years to get ready to repeal Obamacare, and they did a great job during the time of Obama. They sent a bill after bill after bill. There was a lot passed. One even made it up to the president. Of course, he vetoed it because it was his signature legislation. But beyond that, the Republicans, when they knew they couldn't get it really done, found a way to get it done, and then let the blame fall on Obama for it failing, for it being vetoed. But now that they have everything in their favor, they can't get it done. And we have our good friend over there, Mr. John McCain. Wasn't that just a big TV event with John McCain over the last few weeks? Oh, we're gonna have to wait because John McCain's got a brain cancer and he's really sick, and we won't be able to do anything to. Oh, he's coming back. Everybody applaud him. Woo, how brave John McCain is. And then they watch him stab us all in the back. Stab us all in the back during the skinny repeal of Obamacare or whatever. I mean, that's another thing. All of a sudden, we need a skinny thing. We can't have the one we had just, what was it, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that went right up to Obama. Why can't they send that same bill? It passed everybody. Not anymore, I guess. Even though the Republicans even own more than they did. They even own more than they did back then. They still can't. And there, Donald Trump, the president there, is now threatening to take away their health insurance and threatening to not pay the insurance companies. And this falls back into the theory I have that maybe he waited a while to kind of see how things worked, and now he sees it's all jam cluttered. It doesn't work, and you can't trust anybody because look at all the leaks we're having. You can't trust the establishment Republicans because at first chance they turn against him. So maybe we're seeing things a little differently than we're seeing things in the first few months of the presidency. Maybe Donald Trump, and believe me, I'm no fan of him. I jumped off that wagon a long time ago. But he's still the best hope to get anything done for us little people who wanted to put the brakes on the transformation of this country because it was damaging everybody. We had that couple that just jumped off a building in New York, I think, leaving 2 kids behind because Obamacare is crippling them. The federal government is crippling them because they owe taxes. They're in debt up to their ears. And people are starting to crack over this. They're starting to lose their mind, if they haven't already. I felt for a long time that the country has been so under siege that it's snapped a good portion of us. And a lot of us have mental issues. And you can see the ones who really have it. I don't want to go there. Forget it. I was going to head somewhere, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to go there, but I don't want to go there. We got enough to talk about already. We don't need to get into a sidetrack motion here where we talk about something that really irritates the living crap out of me. You know. But the Republicans in the establishment, John McCain, one of the most establishment types out there, backstabs the entire Republican Party, President Trump, and you know, even though the skinny bill wasn't all that great, I mean, we didn't really know what was in it again. Are we ever going to know? Do these people ever think that the American people want to know what you're doing with legislation before you pass it? You know, we'd like to read the thing and then have time to call our congressman or our senator or even the president, which he won't answer, but we can leave messages, send him emails or whatever, saying if we like it or not. And when are these bills? See, the Obamacare bill, which a lot of people like, and a great deal of people, more than the ones that like it, hate it. These bills that are passed go completely against constitutional regulations and rules because any piece of legislation has to include everybody. Not in the taxes, but in the benefits. That means you can't give subsidies to one group of people because they're financially strapped and then take from other people because they can't afford it. That's not an equal playing field. That's why things like healthcare can never be properly implemented by the government because it can't take care of everybody equally. So it shouldn't be handled. It's not a thing for the government. That is something for the individual to handle. And there's a big difference between what the government should be doing and what the individual should be controlling. But most people don't understand that. Most people want the handouts from the government, and most people who get the handouts get more than they pay in, which means somebody along the lines is going to get screwed. Unless you have a whole lot of taxpayers that keel off, that die before their time for benefits comes into play. And maybe that's why they work us to death. They work the hard-working people so hard, they push us so hard that they hope we do collapse and fall and die before they actually have to pay the benefits to us. Because they've been paying the benefits out to people who haven't put into the system at all, or people who haven't put enough into the system to pay for what they have gotten in return. I mean, socialism is great for a lot of people, and it sucks for a whole bunch of other people. That's why it doesn't work. That's why it's not a fair system. A fair system, in my humble opinion, is a system that lets the individual control their own lives. The government stays out of their lives. The government doesn't even tax them. The government has to find ways to pay for their services. Fine. Send a bill to somebody when they have something. Send a bill to them. Don't charge us a tax bill, but you see, we don't really own our property, now do you? We don't own anything. And in fact, one day we're going to talk about why you really don't own anything, why I really don't own anything, or why anybody else really doesn't own anything besides the banks. We don't have enough time to get into it now. But let me know in the chat room or the comment section below if you think Donald Trump's firing Frensley is him finally beginning to clean house in Washington, D.C., and we are going to start seeing the change. Let me know in the comment section below. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for yet another 60 minutes of sonic vibrations known as The John LeBang Show. Got a couple show notes before we head on out of here. First of all, to all the stations in the Banger Network, you'll be receiving our summer scheduling calendar along with the downloads of the show. So this will keep you informed of what's coming up for the month of August. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what's going on in the month of August, that's our normal summer special month where we play all of our specials. The whole month is filled with great humor and programming, just amazing stuff. So be sure to tune in each and every week to have your fun-filled time right here on the John LeBang Show. There won't be much news, but if you want to catch news and opinion from myself, then you can go to our website page in the website, www.jlebang.com, or, of course, like I said, our YouTube page there, and keep up with all the latest videos. We're going to still be doing 5- and 6-minute videos throughout the week to keep you updated on what's going on so we don't fall behind at all. We got to keep up our chops, you know. So that's about it for all the announcements. Thanks to all the affiliate stations for supporting the John LeBang Show and being so awesome out there. And of course, thank you, the listener, who's been fabulous this year, who has helped out the show so much by telling your friends, sharing the information, even just liking our page and liking our posts on Facebook. You're really helping the John LeBang Show grow beyond what we ever dreamed, and we want to thank you. Now, until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, this is John LeBang signing off from the Banger Studios.
1. We have liftoff. again next week. Same time, same space, same station.
Resistance